Do you want the chance to win 5 Funko Pop collectibles? All you have to do is like our social media at IAYTD and Facebook.com/IAYTD, and keep on the lookout for as soon as we hit 10,000 subscribers, we're doing a giveaway, and one of you is going to get 5 of those awesome bad boys. Yes, the ones you get will be in the box, pristine condition, and yes, it applies to anywhere in the world. So get to liking. We are also doing a 10,000 subscriber Q&A, so if there's questions you have, things you want me to talk about, questions you want me to answer, whatever, ask them in any of these videos and I will cover them in that video. Now on with the show. Welcome to IAYTD, and today we are discussing Avengers and the X-Men, because there are always rumors about the two of these universes coming together, because if you're not aware, they are not in the same cinematic universe. So as of right now, the X-Men cannot appear in Avengers Infinity War. I put out a very popular video about that, and one of the most common responses is, duh, the X-Men are going to show up. And that is not, as of right now, possible. But there are always rumors, and these rumors are becoming a little more persistent, that Marvel and Fox are potentially working out a deal for some sort of crossover or something. But before we dive into what could make that crossover work, here's why I initially don't think it's going to happen. It happened with Spider-Man, and so now people think, well, anything's possible. But the difference with Spider-Man and the X-Men is that Spider-Man was a, struggling franchise. That Spider-Man 3, not very good at all. Amazing Spider-Man, okay. Amazing Spider-Man 2, not okay. So they've had basically 3 movies that they might have made money, but they were critically not very great. There were parts that worked. Andrew Garfield, I had no problems with, but the movies as a whole really were not hitting the mark, and so I felt like Sony didn't know what to do with them, so they were more open to lending the properties and bringing Marvel Studios in to reboot and revamp Spider-Man. Fox, on the other hand, is still doing very well. I mean, regardless of what you think about Apocalypse, the 2 movies before that, Days of Future Past and Deadpool, were both loved by many, many people and made a lot of money. That they're not looking to lose that. You know, they don't want to reboot, they don't want to revamp, they don't want to sell the rights back. They're doing fine. So that's the difference between Spider-Man and X-Men. So I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, here's what I think will be needed to make that crossover work. I think if a crossover happens, the X-Men continuity needs to be rebooted. We can't carry with us 20 years of movies that have changed things and they've kind of played with the rules, and now there's time travel and things are very confusing and messy. And I think we need to reboot. That we need to say, okay, let's start X-Men new and let's bring them now into the Marvel Universe. We also have characters that are going to be recast anyways. So Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is not going to continue doing movies. So if we do get a crossover, it's not going to be Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. They're going to have to recast a lot of characters. In the movies right now, so First Class and Apocalypse and now this tentative new kind of Mr. Sinister movie, they're set in the past. So Avengers in current day, they're going to have to recast everyone to have a new X-Men team anyways. So why not just reboot and start over and lose all of this baggage? Now, since everyone loves Deadpool, the next question is, can you reboot the X-Men franchise but keep Deadpool? And the answer is yes, because Deadpool is wacky enough and self-aware enough that he could just make a few lines about the reboot and about how Hugh Jackman is not Wolverine anymore. You know, he can make a few lines and it could work. So I think the success of Deadpool doesn't need to be over. I think they can take Deadpool, they can introduce Cable, they can introduce all sorts of other stuff that ties into the new rebooted X-Men cinematic universe. Another reason to reboot is that the X-Men movies didn't do a great job of really representing a lot of the X-Men characters. That a lot of them were done poorly, just not true to the source material, like why are you making these changes? A lot of them were underserved. So I think it's important that if we do reboot, that you need to allow Marvel to have a lot of creative control. You need to bring in people that know these characters and will do these characters justice. We want to see Storm be the Storm that we know she could be. They've had a lot of chances to get Storm right and they haven't done it. I also think that by having Marvel in the mix, that they would show the restraint needed to keep it a small cast and focus on quality over quantity. The X-Men movies have always overstuffed themselves to the point where there's characters that deserve moments and they deserve attention and they are cameos. So I think that Marvel has mastered the art of bringing in characters but giving them all a moment to shine and treating them with respect. Now the next problem that we need to address somehow is not the X-Men continuity but the Marvel continuity, because in the Avengers continuity that we know, there are no mutants, because mutants would have come up already. That if there were mutants in this world, they would have been part of the Sokovia Accords. Nick Fury would have known about them and included mutants into his Avengers initiative. We would have known about it. So there's either we have to pretend that they've been around and somehow retcon why they weren't part of these things, or we need to pretend that they are just now becoming advanced and becoming known about, which means that they don't really have a history, which is tough to kind of come out and say, well, mutants are just now getting discovered. I mean, how do you have a Magneto story? How do you have Xavier starting the school a long time ago? You can't really have a history if you have to pretend like they're just now evolving. So that's a problem. I don't really have an answer to that, but if X-Men does get rebooted and put into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they have to figure out a clever way to answer for where have they been this whole time. The next problem comes with the scope of Infinity War, or whatever that movie will be retitled. And that is that there's already a lot of people. And I know that we're already worried about every character getting their moment. That will the Guardians fit in? Will the Netflix heroes make it onto the big screen? Is there time for all of this to happen? Nonetheless, with the addition of a whole new ensemble of characters that we need to learn about and get to know. So I think the only way that that could work, that crossover event, is that if there's establishing movies first, that there's at least one movie with this new X-Men, so that we get to learn about them, get to figure out who they are, how they fit in this world, and then we see them appear somewhere else. Now, the problem with this is that time is ticking, that they're already kind of working on these movies leading up to Infinity War, and X-Men needs to be right in there. Because I think if they're introducing characters in Infinity War, we're already getting to know so many new characters that I worry that's going to not work. I mean, I'm worried. So I think they need to have an establishing movie first. Now, the one exception to this is if they choose to use Deadpool, and if they only use Deadpool. So if they say, we don't really want to worry about the X-Men now, but we want Deadpool in Infinity War, I think that would make sense. And again, with his self-referential nature, he could make a few lines that, hey, don't worry about it, here I am. So I think if they're going to work out a deal to use Deadpool, that could be interesting. But again, how does Deadpool fit tonally with the very kid-friendly Avengers? I don't know if that movie would work, because you don't want to see a PG-rated Deadpool. But we also can't see an R-rated Avengers movie. So that puts us in another predicament. So in conclusion, if an X-Men crossover happens, I think it needs to be a rebooted universe. I think Marvel needs to be given more creative control to make it right. I think there needs to be an establishing film that happens before this big crossover event, and I think Deadpool can be given a pass to still exist. Is there anything else that you think needs to happen for the X-Men to coexist? Are there other problems you see? Do you want this to happen? Or are you fighting for, no, keep them separate? So what do you think about the state of the MCU versus the X-Men cinematic universe? Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.